heading to Mars. Everybody out there, you thought, oh, we had small ambitions, right? We were heading to the moon for the last decade. Now we're going to Mars.
Yeah, hell, heck yeah. The moon, been there, done that. Matter of fact, we were there in 1969. I remember. Hey, why not go to Mars and beyond? Pluto, beyond. The Elon Man in the spacesuit, driving in the Tesla, flying around with the David Bowie music, Rocket Man, is out there past the solar system. He's already leaving our galaxy. He's heading toward the Andromeda strain. That's where Bitcoin's going. That's where Elon is going. That's where everybody's going.
Right. So if you have, for some reason, not heard the news, Tesla, in their SEC filings, announced that they've bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. I think it's something like, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Leave it in the comments right here. I'm looking at your comments. Is it 46,000 Bitcoin? I can't remember. But bought Bitcoin.
Also, you can buy Teslas with Bitcoin. So that's a major advance. And buy a Tesla with Bitcoin, and in the trunk is a tied up doll of Peter Schiff, all gagged and bound, which you can take out to the desert somewhere and bury, and screaming, "Have fun staying poor." Ha 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 ha!
How's the audio, by the way? Is it okay? Because we have a lot of Karens that watch this show, and some people complain about stuff, and they like to complain. So let us know if the audio is okay for you, Karen. Just the Karens. Don't anybody else speak up right now.
Where we're going, there won't be any Karens. We're going way, way, way into the Bitcoinosphere. 50, 60, 65,000 in the short term, as I've predicted.
Yeah.
220,000 in 2021. So a lot of people thought 220,000 in 2021 was an aggressive, really, prediction. But as you can see, things get hot quick. And here you have one guy, Elon Musk, with his company putting in $1.5 billion. The people are now talking about Apple Computer. They've got $200 billion in cash. The eloquence of Michael Saylor is not lost on the CEOs and the CFOs of these corporations all over the world who realize what Michael Saylor's been talking about, the melting ice cube of cash on the balance sheet. And add the Max Keiser Playbook, which is the speculative attack on the Bank of England circa 1993 by George Soros, borrowing money at cheap rates to crash a central bank. Soros and Druckenmiller, who was his investment guru at the time, made a quick $1 billion profit. Okay, go to 2021. You've got all these corporations, hedge funds, private equity funds, sovereign wealth funds, and they're looking at this world full of hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of fiat paper printed by the central banks that have no policy whatsoever to curtail this runaway freight train of paper. And they're like, wait a minute, interest rates are near 0%. Let's do a global speculative attack on all central banks simultaneously, borrowing all we can, using our cash to buy Bitcoin and crash central banks at the same time. You make oodles and oodles. The upside is virtually infinite because Bitcoin has no top. Why? Because fiat money has no bottom. This is the Max Keiser playbook. I've been sharing this with everybody around the world for 10 years now. And a lot of people in the world who got into Bitcoin at $1, $10, $50, $100, except for Peter Schiff, who I told to buy it at $1 or $10, and he refused.
Oh, no, he says you didn't tell him at $1, you told him at $10.
Right, but thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people around the world did. They're sitting on millions and millions of dollars worth of unrealized profits. And here's the thing, Stacy, I saw you were tweeting about, when are you going to sell it? And you're like, well, I'm not going to sell it because I predicted going up to 500,000 or more, and I'm just going to use it as collateral.
Yes.
As borrow against it, and I can use it that way. Why would I ever sell it?
I won't sell any Bitcoin from here on out. There's lots of new platforms and services being offered for people in the Bitcoin space. So you can always just keep stacking and then borrow against your Bitcoin. And I do want to say, you can't say that Max didn't tell you so. That these people are coming, these corporations are coming, these institutions are coming. It was really triggered by Paul Tudor Jones entering the space back in the second quarter of 2020. And now we see Elon Musk and Tesla with $1.5 billion. We don't know how much SpaceX has bought, but presumably they also bought some for their treasury, but they don't have to, file that with the SEC. And well, I'm going to show you a headline. I just showed it to you while Max was talking, so he didn't see it though. I'm going to read it to Max. US corporates hold record $2.5 trillion in cash to meet pandemic shock. So that's 2.5 trillion. So if they all do like Elon, how much is that? $250 billion worth of purchases coming. So even if half of them do it, that's 125. If 25% of them do it, it's like 75 billion. So there's a lot more money on corporate balance sheets where, that Tesla money came from.
Right. Look at the big picture here. There's $300 trillion worth of investable assets on planet Earth. That includes stocks, bonds, property, precious metals. How much of that is invested in Bitcoin right now? Less than 1%. So we're looking to do the Elon here, go 10%. That's $30 trillion right there. Bitcoin is still less than $1 trillion. So I figure that's how I come up with 40x from here. That's just a 10% allocation to Bitcoin. And of course, the thing is that we're going to see fiat money basically go the way of all fiat money, which is to 99.9% loss of purchasing power. So that 10% effectively becomes 50, 60, 70%. Again, there is no top to the price of Bitcoin. Because fiat money is a bottomless pit that loses for the past 300 years 99.9% of its purchasing power.
Of course, the Tesla effect has hit the whole entire market in terms of buying yourself, smash buying any Bitcoin today. Swan Bitcoin has been down. Luckily, we did that Swan Bitcoin, the Super Sunday smash buy with Stacy on Sunday, and it was at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And you know what happened is that I did my smash buy. It was a little bit late, 2:02 p.m. And what happened is that Swan was just the problems were already like signaling. Basically, the market saw that Elon had just emptied out the whole liquidity in the Bitcoin market at that price. And so I put in an order. I smash bought at 2 p.m. my Sunday smash buy, and Swan said like there was a problem. Like it just like had a red warning sign. So I was like, oh well. I just like got everybody on the Orange Pill Podcast Telegram group to join me at the same time. So I can't not buy. So I went over to my Cash app and I smash bought. And then like 5 minutes later, I got an email from Swan Bitcoin that my order went through. So I double bought at 38,000 and like 400.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, hopefully it doesn't fall from here. And then you wake up and you're like, woo, glad I double bought yesterday, double dipping.
Absolutely. That's the thing you do. Keep buying it because it's got 100% probability of going higher. And accept the volatility. I tweeted something out. I've tweeted this a few times over the years. With Bitcoin, you have volatility and 100% increase, guaranteed 100% increase in your purchasing power. With fiat money, you have no volatility and 100% guarantee you will lose your purchasing power. And once you understand that, you're not going to hesitate in switching out of fiat money into Bitcoin. The volatility is the substance, the life substance of a new emerging asset class coming into this world. And think of Godzilla coming out of the ocean. He just doesn't tiptoe out of the ocean and unnoticeably. He's Godzilla. And there's huge tsunamis and everyone runs scared. That's Bitcoin. And think of all the money managers out there today that have been thinking, I can wait, or I don't believe it, or I'm buying something else. And they're just gobsmacked. They're like, oh my God, I have to actually figure all this out. I have to start buying Bitcoin. It's like all those people running away from Godzilla. Either you get on Godzilla's back and you are not going to get stomped and trampled by Godzilla, or you're going to be trampled by Godzilla. If you don't have enough Bitcoin at some point, you're just going to be trampled by Godzilla. And I know that sounds harsh, but throughout history, you go back to Noah's Ark. Either you got on the ark or you got on the flood. You got a choice to make, people. Either go with Bitcoin or go away.
People are saying Swan Bitcoin is the Tom Brady of of Bitcoin exchanges. Convert your fiat, dump your fiat. Like, I still can't believe. Well, I can't believe that Elon Musk was able to buy for Tesla $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin under $40,000. Like, it's remarkable. And in a year's time, next year, when we're doing this, we're going to look back. We're going to all watch this episode back together and laugh that Elon was able to buy that for 40,000, not 400,000.
Well, crazy pays. And what I mean is that the benefit of being crazy, or having the perception of being crazy, is that you can get good deals on Bitcoin still. I've often said that people say Max is crazy, but the point is that I want to make sure that I don't attract the beige people,
Oh,
the middle of the road people,
no.
the average investor people. I want to stay away from those people, because they'll be buying it at 4 or 5, 600,000 a coin. The crazy people who make their own path, they're happy to buy it at $1 or $10, $100, $1,000, $5,000. That's the path of the crazy people, who is the same as Elon Musk. Elon Musk is perceived by many to be crazy. He goes on Joe Rogan, he's smoking a joint.
Yes.
This guy can't be trustworthy. Why would I do what this guy's doing? But that's very calculated to fend off competition. And he clearly worked this time. I mean, he was able to score a huge amount of Bitcoin still at these ridiculously cheap prices.
I'm going to do a quick thing. Everybody smash that like, okay? Right now, the smash likes are at 242. I'll talk to you again
Oh, yeah.
when it's 300.
And the key is that you go to swanbitcoin.com/orange pill, and you get, if you're new, you get $10 worth of free Bitcoin if you register. So, I mean, what's a better deal than that? And you can start dollar cost averaging immediately. Plus, Swan has a new private client feature. So if you've got 50,000, you can call them up and they will get on the phone with you and do a one-on-one.
For anywhere in the world. So anybody in Europe or Hong Kong, many parts of the world. See, just go to swanbitcoin.com, /orange pill, register, and then just send them an email at support@swanbitcoin.com and tell them, hey, I'm in the UK, but I have $50,000 to buy some Bitcoin with Stacy, and because I want to belong in her club.
Yeah, anywhere in the world, right? UK, Europe, Africa, Asia.
I'm not sure about Africa. So go to swanbitcoin.com /private and check out the details, because you'll find the details there. It's not all over the world because of the banking relationships, unfortunately. So definitely Europe, definitely Canada, definitely like Hong Kong. So certain sectors where there's like good relationships between the banks. I don't know about Africa. I don't know about Latin America. I'm not sure about that, but go to swanbitcoin.com /private and you'll find out whether or not you can buy that from over there. So, I'm still stacking. I was stacking today. So I stacked the new all-time high, because that's the Bitcoin way. You stack the smash by the all-time high, and got some at 44,000. So I'm very proud of myself.
Why not? Why not?
How about you? Or did you do who's going to come next, right? After Elon Musk? We pointed out $2.5 trillion. I don't think, I saw a lot of people talking to Tim Cook saying, oh, Tim Cook, you have what? They have like 250 billion or something on their balance sheet. Sure, they have a lot of debt, so they accumulated a huge amount of debt in order to pay the dividend without having to pay taxes and, sending out that cash. So,
the source who told me the news before the MicroStrategy conference, remember I tweeted that?
Yeah.
Source told me big corporate buyer coming.
Yeah.
Turned out to be, I couldn't give the name at that time because I didn't want to get my source in trouble. So there it was, Tesla, and the news has come out. The same source is telling me now, unusually, a name of a company that is in the running, according to this source, of being the next huge corporation to get into Bitcoin. And that would be Oracle. with Larry Ellison.
Well, that makes sense because a lot of the sort of guys who are leaving Silicon Valley, it's a rejection of the current paradigm, right? Like this has been the paradigm that has ruled America since say 2000, right? The late 1900 and 1990s, and we had Silicon Valley ruled the roost. Alan Greenspan started intervening in the markets in order to protect everybody who's lost any money in the markets, and now it's at the end stage of that. Like there's no more intervention to do, right? Even as Max mentioned, Stan Druckenmiller, he just told Goldman Sachs. I guess Goldman Sachs is making in the podcast business too. So smash like ours, because you don't want that YouTube algorithm to like push people to the Goldman Sachs podcast. You want them to look at the Max and Stacy Orange Pill podcast. Nevertheless, Stan Druckenmiller, who has not had one down year with his hedge fund since 1981. That's a pretty good performance. Okay. He's outperforming most other hedge funds, I would say. And he just said to Goldman Sachs that he is very, very, not just one very, very short the US dollar, which is a pretty brave call, right? A brave move to do.
Yeah, and he's shorting U.S. Treasury bonds, which has been as they say, widowmaker trade now for 20 years, certainly since 2008. Remember, 2008 crisis hit, and that was met with a flood of money printing. And a lot of people, pundits, financial pundits, were saying, hey, this is going to cause inflation. But it never really did cause inflation because all that free money was then bought back by the central bank. So they neutralized the impact of the money printing by doing what's called debt monetization. So this has been going on now since really 2008 in a huge way, and certainly in the larger context, certainly going back, as you point out, to the 1980s with Alan Greenspan. But now at this juncture, I believe we're at the stage where debt monetization is not going to work anymore. So the impacts of that money printing start to seep into and leak into the economy for real. And that's why you see commodities entering now a secular bull market. So they have been in a secular bear market for a while. Now they're starting to uptick. So oil is on a tear. Oil has had the best start in 2021 in something like 18 or 19 years, or maybe longer.
30
30
years.
years. 30 years. Oil's had the best start in 2021 in 30 years. You've got a big merger possibly coming on, Exxon and Chevron. There's a lot going on in the oil patch. And but all the commodities are looking very bullish. Of course, Bitcoin is a monetary commodity, you could say. In that sense, it would trade as a commodity would trade because it's counter to the dollar.
The
So,
IRS calls it a commodity.
yeah, so the dollar, meanwhile, is looking like it's on the other side of that trade. And of course, Warren Buffett's been moving heavily into Japan. That's a bearish bet on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Stan Druckenmiller's moving into commodities and he's shorting treasury bonds. That's anti-dollar. And Bitcoin, of course, has already been telegraphing now for 10 years that the dollar is losing purchasing power. As a matter of fact, all fiat currencies, including the US dollar, have been in a hyperinflationary collapse against Bitcoin now for 10 years, and that is set to expand and extend and continue.
I also thought it was interesting that Stan Druckenmiller said that he prefers to stick in, a large portion of his funds in currencies and bonds because they trade 24/7, just like Bitcoin. So I think, that'll be interesting to see if we eventually, we have to, right? We have to see the end of these markets that are only open from 9:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. It just seems like that's so antiquated, right? Like these, especially like at a long weekend when you have, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off as well. Like it just seems like that, like so much stuff in this hyper globalized world seems to just move so fast and hard over the weekends that like we can't do that, right?
Well, the problem is that architecture for markets doesn't scale. So we saw that with the Wall Street bets. There was such a surge of Robinhood traders that they literally overwhelmed the market maker,
Yeah.
and they caused that move from $10 to $500. and total chaos in the hedge fund world, including Melvin Capital and Citadel Capital. So a lot of times when markets are closed on the weekends, remember 2008, are
True.
times when the back office, the place where all trades are reconciled and people have to match buyers and sellers and which account goes where. They need that time to actually clean up a lot of the paper that's generated, a lot of the trading volume that's generated. So the architecture of the exchanges is improved periodically to handle more volume, but that doesn't necessarily mean the back office where these trades are reconciled and accounts are figured out, that is also scaling to the same extent that the computer and the algorithms are trading stocks and bonds in the front end of the matrix, if you will, of securities trading. And so that time is used often to reconcile. Now, what's happening here is that, what, in my view, the markets, it won't necessarily be expanded on, let's say, the New York Stock Exchange. I think the New York Stock Exchange will just close. I think that like a Warren Buffett and a few other private equity groups will take pretty much everything private, and there won't be any stocks to buy at all. And the retail environment is going to be totally driven by Bitcoin and Bitcoin trading and everything related to Bitcoin. That's what I think is the more likely outcome.
Hey, for the full dose on this Sunday, we're going to be talking to Nomi Prinz. She's the author of Collusion, where she talked about the central banks all colluding. And of course, now at this sort of period of time where we have deglobalization, she's talking about them like no longer working together. But she also did, during the financial crisis of 2008, she wrote that book, It Takes a Pillage, right? Which is a great title. It talks about this pillage model that we just talked about, the zombie economics. And so if you have any questions for her, because she's good at this story too with Wall Street Bets, and as a former analyst and looking at, she's a PhD in statistics actually, so she's looking at that sort of data. So just so you know, that's what we're going to be, what you have to look forward to on Full Dose. Who's going to smash like right now? I see we have 1,720 people watching, and we have what? How many likes? Only 617. Go smash like right now. Otherwise, Max is going to get up and start dancing.
That's an underperforming number, the likes versus views.
Well, people get mesmerized. They tune in and they just can't stop staring at us, and they're like, "Oh my God, this content is amazing." And I don't want to look down at that like button. So right now we're going to talk about Fluffernutter, right? It's just fluff. So take your eyes off the screen, look down, and go, "Oh, I'm going to hit that like button," because I know for a fact, because they just promised me they're not going to say anything interesting. So now that you've done it, I see we have a lot of people. See, look, it's already over 800. Okay, that was good.
Well done.
That was well done. Well done, guys. So while I look at the messages over here, I want, Max, what your thoughts are on what Elon Musk did in terms of the lead up to this announcement this morning that Tesla had bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. The point is that, in the lead up to him, he was acting crazy. So he would probably be really bad at poker, right? He has all sorts of tells. He was acting crazy, all this Dogecoin shit. He took down that Bitcoin from his bio because he did kind of tweet that he was concerned, he didn't want to get in trouble for causing the price to go up. So what do you think about all that Dogecoin stuff? Because a lot of people are angry at him for doing that now.
Well, I've said for years now that you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. And obviously, Elon Musk is under the influence of Bitcoin. He has been under the influence of Bitcoin now for at least 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And he's been smoking the Bitcoin. He's been mixing it in the bowl with his other treats. And he's huffing and puffing. And he went down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin. And that changes the architecture of your mind. It changes the way you see things. It changes your physiognomy. It changes your psychology. It changes your outlook. And so once somebody's under the influence of Bitcoin, we no longer can ascribe rationality to them. In other words, it's like flying over the Bermuda Triangle. The dials start spinning in opposite directions. Is the plane upside down? Is it right side up? It's just a zone of unbearable unbearingness. It's not, there's no bearings. You're without bearings in an unbearable way with a bearer asset. So you have a bearer asset, Bitcoin, and you're going into the unbearable unbearingness of the Bermuda Triangle of Bitcoin, flying over the financial zone, over the target. And down below is Michael Saylor with a big fucking flag waving it and saying, "Open the Bombay doors, you freaking jerk. Drop all your cash on here, the Bitcoin target." So he's under a lot of, I would say, kind of
He's going through the birthing canal. He's
yeah,
like
yeah,
going. He's coming out into the world. If you've ever witnessed a baby being born, like I saw
yeah,
my nephew being born,
yeah.
it's pretty traumatic. They
Right.
don't
So
tell you
he's
they come out like a huge banana head.
right. So there's Elon. He's coming out of Michael Saylor's vagina.
Oh my god.
And people are trying to figure out if he's being rational or not. It's the trauma of Bitcoin birth.
Yeah.
You can't ascribe rationality to it. It's just the miracle of birth. Just sit back and enjoy the glow of it and take it in. You're already orange pilled. So any additional Bitcoinization that's happening in Elon Musk's mind and Michael Saylor's balance sheet is only going to make things like an origami of fabulousness, unfolding, refolding, defolding, unfolding right inside the matrix of the Bitcoinization that is now what you're living in, per the orange pill that, of course, we've been in for 10 years. A lot of people say, well, how come you can be so calm during Bitcoin's ascent to the 40, 50, 60, $100,000 levels? Because we've been doing this for 10 years, and most of what would be considered the rational functioning of our brain has been deleted long ago. We actually are just
It's
in
true.
hologram land. There's a hologram has replaced all the actual biomaterial in our cranium, and it's all cyberfied. And we actually communicate this way. And this is the only time we use audible words
These
to
old fashioned
communicate.
words.
Yeah, because usually off air, we just communicate in each other's cybersphere, and we're just one person. The Max and Stacy, it's just actually Max Stacy. It's just one person.
It's I think somebody came up with the like stacksy. Like
Staxy.
we're stacksy. We stack and stack. Yeah, we already went crazy. We
Yeah,
we
we
already
went
did the
crazy.
whole crazy thing.
Yeah, we went crazy. I'd say, back in 2013, I
Yeah.
went totally insane. And then I realized it doesn't matter because the Bitcoin price will just keep going higher. And I've got the Bitcoin, and everyone else is going to be scrambling for the Bitcoin. So once you understand that, I mean, literally, people are going to be like, the availability for Bitcoin is going to be very, very difficult. So let's say you're worth 100 million, 500 million, or $1 billion, and you've been putting off your purchase of Bitcoin for years, and then suddenly you figure out, oh my God, I need to buy 10 million or 50 million worth of Bitcoin, and you call up an exchange, and they're like, we're out of Bitcoin. We're waiting for
Yeah.
sellers. We're waiting for Bitcoin to come in. We're waiting for some sellers. We at the moment have none to sell you at the moment, and you're going to be like, oh my God, where am I going to get some? So then you call up some super billionaire friend of yours that has billions and billions worth, and you're like, can you just sell me 50 million? And okay, what are you going to pay for it? Not 40,000, not 50,000. You're going to pay 120,000 per coin. So then you say, let's do it over the counter. So they say, okay, tape is rolling by. You see, 10 billion Bitcoin at 120,000 per coin. And then that's the market. That is the market. That's what it is. That's the new market. That's the price. And that's the way it works. The supply and demand. It's not like every other market in the world that's completely corrupted and bastardized by naked short selling, corrupt market makers, Lloyd Blankfein claiming that liquidity is the same as insolvency. None of that goes on. It's just pure price discovery. It's the purest asset ever to be experienced by this particular species on this particular planet over the past 200,000-300,000 years. This is actually a unique moment. We're living through it. It's not the end of the world. It's not the apocalypse. It's the beginning of the Bitcoinization.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. But when you talk about those that price discovery, that's what I'm saying is like, you say that you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. But that's what I'm saying is if we're in a hyper Bitcoinized world, Bitcoin's going to change everything, right? Including equity markets. So they're going to have to go, because look at what happens in stock markets. They're they're totally rigged, right? We have the naked short selling, which we've covered, but the classic thing, right, is like after the close is when all of the hedge funds and insiders get to do all the trading, the profitable trading, and then dump on retail at the open. There's a guaranteed, like they show the returns versus the close versus those who have to buy at the open. Like it's ridiculous. Like it's a huge gap, bigger even than the wealth and income gap in America. So if we had 24-hour trading and they didn't have these special hours where only the elite and the insiders got to trade, maybe we would have fairer markets in the, equity markets, which kind of seem old fashioned at this point.
Look, BlackRock is the biggest purveyor of ETFs, exchange traded funds. Here's a common scam. It goes back decades. We were doing it back on Wall Street for closed end funds, as they were called at that time. And the closing price versus the actual value of the stocks in the closed end fund or the ETF is often not the same.
Yeah.
So what brokers do is calculate the true net asset value, and then put a trade on to capture that spread, which goes on the opening morning of the following trading day. And so you're capturing that spread every single day from the mispricing of the ETF versus the underlying securities in that fund. And so that really, in a world where this type of pilfering is not common, would be in the pockets of those investing in that closed-end fund or that ETF. But it doesn't go there. So here's BlackRock, the biggest purveyor of ETFs in the world. There's more ETFs than there are actual securities on the exchanges. I think there's something like on the New York Stock Exchange, there's roughly 3,000 or 3,500 stocks that trade, and plus NASDAQ is another few thousand. There's actually more ETFs than there are stocks that are on these exchanges. And so BlackRock is there every night just skimming billions from you, putting it in their pocket. And that's, like we find out with Wall Street Bets, just one of dozens and dozens and dozens of scams that are common. And there are rules and laws against it, but the key is none of those rules and laws are enforced. There's a difference between having a law and having law enforcement. Those are two separate things. In the securities market, there is virtually none of the latter. There is virtually none. There is no law enforcement whatsoever. And the closest you come is when you sue somebody on Wall Street. But of course, every time you do that, you find out the meaning of the term binding arbitration by a panel of our peers, which means that if you sue a banker or a broker, it says right in the client agreement that you signed on, you now have to go to an arbitration panel, which is made up of, wait for it, brokers and bankers. How much money is captured back to the client suing firms over the past 30 years? Less than 1% of funds in question, quote unquote, in question, i.e. stolen, are ever recaptured for that very simple reason.
Right.
Hello.
Hey, smash it. Look, we have over 2,000 people in the room watching this live stream as we microdose Elon Musk.
Microdose Elon Musk. That's right. If you go to swanbitcoin.com/orange pill, you get $10 free Bitcoin if you register. And if you want to do a private client deal, if you got $50,000 or higher, you can call Swan up. Actually, talk to Robert Breedlove. He's a smart guy.
True.
And he will hook you up with 50,000 or more, up to $1 million, 10 million. There's no limit to how many Bitcoins you can buy, assuming they can source the Bitcoin. As of an hour or two ago, I haven't heard any reports back that the private client function at Swan has been temporarily.
Well, it could be for every single human being on Earth. There are 7.7 billion people. You may not be able to find Bitcoin anywhere at these prices. You might have to offer 400,000, 500,000. Why people are selling, why somebody sold at $1.5 billion to Elon Musk, Lord only knows. I would love to interview that person or those collective of people who the various miners or whatever who sold Elon Musk this coin. Like it just seems like the most absurd. If Elon Musk came to me and wanted to buy Bitcoin from me, and if he showed up, I'd be like, if Elon Musk wants to buy Bitcoin from me, I'm not selling it to him because like that's a very good reason not to sell, right? Like why would you sell to somebody like Elon Musk?
Well, okay, that's where being crazy helps because it doesn't necessarily go into Elon per se. It goes into someone representing Elon
Yeah.
or a network or a group of folks who represent Elon who are buying in batches to mask what's going on for Elon. And also, dealers will many times short you a security. Let's say a dealer of Bitcoin, and there's a huge short interest in Bitcoin. How did they arrive at that short interest? Because
Mm.
they shorted Bitcoin to somebody like the representatives of Elon Musk, and now they've got a short position. And if they have balanced longs and shorts, okay, they're making a market. That's fine. But if one day they find themselves, oh my gosh, my short position is way unbalanced for my long position, I've got to go out there and actually buy Bitcoin, and oh, there's no Bitcoin to buy, and oh, the price has got to go up.
Yeah. So I think Max has said this. I think you'll see some big gaps up. We haven't seen what's the biggest candle we've seen? Tell me somebody in the live chat there.
We
What is
had
the
that
biggest?
question.
Was it $4,000?
Yeah, I think we agreed that it was under 5,000, between 4 and 5,000 was the single green candle,
Yeah, yeah.
biggest green candle.
So I mean, that's gonna seem quaint one day, right? That's
Yeah,
gonna seem like the old, like when we used to be excited when it was like, oh my God, Bitcoin went up $50 today. It's gonna be like that. It's gonna be like it's gonna look back on $4,000 candles like with quaintness. I'm gonna look for the answer.
right,
5,000, 4,800,
right.
6,000, 4,000, 4,000, 4,000. It seems to be 4,000 is like the median of the collective of
The
the
wisdom
people in there,
of the
the wisdom of
crowds.
the crowds there.
So yeah, $20,000, $25,000 green candle for Bitcoin. I think we'll see that in 2021.
Yeah, probably in the first quarter
Mm-hmm.
because remember Coinbase is going public, right?
Right.
So that's going to drive dot com like dot com 1.0 bubble sort of hysteria. Like it's going to be like late 90s. It's going to be I think it's just going to be insane because first they were predicting like 40-50 billion dollar valuation, and then it moved up to like 65-70, and now it's $100 billion that people are predicting Coinbase will go public for. um Obviously we'd be happy because we own Kraken and Swan and like other exchanges,
Bit
so
so.
yeah, it would be good for that whole sector. But it's going to drive, because it's going to be like the biggest thing in a long time. It's going to get a lot of publicity. It's going to get a lot of conversation happening on the mainstream media and cable news. So it's going to introduce, the 75% of Americans who haven't bought any Bitcoin or heard of it or anything, conversation like that.
I'll tell you who's going to introduce Brian Armstrong, because Brian Armstrong, who's co-founder and CEO of Coinbase, he never does media. Never seen him on CNBC. Never seen him anywhere. Now, right now, they're in a quiet period, so they would be forbidden from doing any media. But up until for his whole career at Coinbase, it doesn't really pay for him to do much media. Barry Silbert over at Digital Currency Group, he's done media, but less and less.
He
As
stopped doing it
right,
after like 2015 or so.
right. So they're
Once he got
just
more institutional investors involved, he did Kaiser Report. We were in
yeah.
one of the few interviews he did.
It's you get too busy. Like I just don't even have time to go to the studio, and because I'm just too busy. And also the messaging is usually comes out of the PR department, and you don't want the CEO saying stuff that goes against the messaging, right? That's always something that goes in there, especially if you're trying to attract capital or go public. So Brian Armstrong has been really not somebody who's been in mainstream media. So they go public, and now suddenly he's released from that
Stress of
that constriction, and he'll go on CNBC, and he's going to tell the Bitcoin story in a way that we haven't heard before.
he's not a very he's never ever tweeted but once about Bitcoin. So
Hmm.
he's more like a shitcoiner at heart. So I'm not sure. Like once Kraken goes, like that'll be a bigger Bitcoin story. I think they should go public because they'll tell the Bitcoin story in a good way. Hey, hit smash that like button on there. Um Also, I forgot I was going to say something while you were talking about that, yeah, so Coinbase is going to go public. People are going to start hearing about Bitcoin. They're going to pile in there. Nigeria, of course, this past week, how dumb, right? what's going on? Like Nigeria banned Bitcoin, or well, they can't ban Bitcoin, right? What they could do is tell their banks, Nigerian banks, not to deal with Bitcoin related companies. The UK has done this in the past. I think they've relaxed those restrictions. India did that. They did that to Unicoin, another Bitcoin exchange, which we are investors in. They got shut down by the central bank banning of banking services being offered to Bitcoin companies. That got overturned in the Supreme Court. Maybe that might happen in Nigeria, but you think of Nigeria and you just think like, my God, like here's a country, the second most volume of Bitcoin on Paxful.com. And you just wonder like, why would you like destroy the entrepreneurial spirit? Like this, like fiat is over. Like why you of all countries would hang on to that? I could see European countries or America wanting to hang on because they have all this exorbitant privilege, but you don't even have an exorbitant privilege. Like why not like be the first? Why not head to the moon? Why not head to Mars with Elon Musk, right? He's African as well. Like he's from South Africa. Like this is your brethren here who is like showing you the path to a Bitcoin future. You could be first on the hyper Bitcoinization. Instead, like you're stuck on this old oil, wealth. By the way, they blow half of it on flaring. Like you could start mining Bitcoin with all that flaring. Like why on earth they're doing this, I have no idea, but it's the hugest mistake ever.
Right. Well, we said that there's no enforcement of laws in the financial world,
Yeah.
and there's no way to enforce a ban on Bitcoin. And ultimately, Bitcoin wins. So there's no way to enforce that ban. So no
No.
country's been able to enforce a Bitcoin ban. Several have come out with bans, but they can't enforce ban. You can't.
Well,
It's like,
Iran tried to ban it and now they're mining it. Venezuela tried to ban it, now they're mining it. Like
yeah,
that's usually the path. Like Max was talking about the birthing,
yeah,
like the Bitcoin birth that happens and it's messy and painful.
yeah,
But then here's the same thing. Countries go, oh my God, this is a threat to our exorbitant privilege of being able to print our own currency and the senior edge and all that stuff.
yeah,
But then they see like, okay, we're going to ban it. And they're like, holy shit, like this thing is amazing. And like,
yeah.
we can't stop it. So if we can't stop it from our own citizens, then America, which controls the global financial settlements layer, they can't stop us, right? Like this is
Mm-hmm.
like, that once you start to see the idea that like, most of Africa is totally resource rich. They have so many commodities, so many raw ingredients of all of our high tech life around us. And yet they've been restricted because of the financial system, because of the US dollar settlements layer from even participating. They can't get that capital. All they could do is sell those natural resources to those who add the value. Well, now you could have a world where they could start adding the value and becoming the wealthy superpowers that they should be. They should have always been that for the past few decades. Instead of they've been selling their barrels of oil and flaring all sorts of natural gas without collecting anything from it. And now they can start mining Bitcoin from that flared natural gas. We're going to talk to Bitcoin, Denver Bitcoin or Bitcoin Denver about that whole process of capturing, mining Bitcoin via the natural gas flaring. So there's a huge amount of that in Nigeria, and they should be doing that instead of being dumb. Don't be dumb. Be like Elon Musk. Like he's finally he's seen the light. He's seen the disco lights, the disco ball lights.
Right, but everyone like Nigeria, I think you're right that it was predictable that they would at some point say
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like all countries before it. Even Michael Saylor in 2013, when he was talked
True.
to about Bitcoin, he said no.
True.
Elon Musk said he heard about Bitcoin in 2013 or 2014, and he said no.
Yeah.
And so that's the course of affairs. People say
Yeah.
because people don't like change, and people
True.
don't want to be hyper Bitcoinized,
Yeah.
and they're comfortable in their skin, and they don't want anything happening. So it's predictable. Now the result is that 6 months from now, or so, there'll be a reversal because they realize that was a mistake and there's no way to enforce it. And actually, we should be mining Bitcoin and turning flared gas into Bitcoin, and they'll have to go through that. So just like when you have a child and the child, has to learn on its own. Sometimes you can't teach the child; it has to learn on its own. and that's the way it goes. And so Nigeria was in a great position, and it was hyper Bitcoinized and moving ahead. And then they had to make a little boo boo, and then they're going to learn, and then they'll be back on track hopefully in 6 months.
As soon as you said the child has to learn, I had a flashback to living in Queens, New York City, and we had a gas stove, and I was 4, and my older sister who was 6 was like supposed to be watching me, and I was told not to put any paper in the flame, so I was like, okay, let's see why, why not? And I lit it on fire. I could still see in my eyes, like the 4-year-old Stacy. I could still see, and I went like this, and I put it in the flame, and it caught on fire, and it was like, ah, it hurt, and I was like, and threw it.
How many people died in that accident?
Nobody.
Oh,
But my mom was really upset with my older sister for not stopping me from doing this. But it lit our, this was the 70s, so it lit the curtains, like the polyester curtains, on fire. They just like went up in like immediate flames all over. So yeah, that was like my lesson not to play with
right.
fire.
So there you go. You were told, look, this is a bad
Don't do it.
idea. You knew it, but you had to do it. So Nigeria, I'm sure a lot of smart people in Nigeria are telling the government this is really stupid what you're
Yeah.
doing. They did it anyway. And now 6 months from now, they're going to be like, yeah, that was a stupid idea. We got to reverse ourselves. Same thing with every country. It's going to go through the same thing. The U.S. will do the same thing. But on the state level, like in Wyoming and in Miami, Florida, they are just charging ahead because, America is unique in that way, is that it's the United States of America, and the states have rights versus the federal government.
And big cities like Miami have
That's
a lot
right.
of rights. Yeah.
Miami's got rights, and they can take political initiatives and then try to lobby the federal government to change the federal government. So we're seeing that in Wyoming. We're seeing that in Miami. They're already going full Bitcoin. So that could be the saving grace for the United States, the next 20, 30 years, where if they go full Bitcoin and don't allow themselves to go down the path of stupidity by trying to ban Bitcoin, they could leapfrog ahead and have a huge century, really. And if, China, obviously being very, very hyper centralized in their government, it will be resistant to a decentralized gold substitute, right? So they're going to really drag their feet, kicking and screaming into this thing. Whereas the U.S., as Winston Churchill says, the U.S. can be relied on to try everything else, but eventually do the right thing. I paraphrase, of course, and I'm sure our British watchers will have the exact Winston Churchill phrase, and you can put that into the comments. And I guarantee you I will misquote it again.
Stacy, I'm glad I bought 200 Bitcoin back in 2010. Yes, that was good. BTC is helping to pay my daughter's tuition. Thank you for your guidance, Stacy and Max. Hey, we have 2,600 people watching. So there's 1.3 thousand likes. There should be 2,000.
Swan.
So my third iOS open is open. Oh, Plucky is the reason. Like Plucky is the next reason why it goes up. Okay, so we have all these corporate treasuries buying, but like we're about to get a whole lot of money printing again, right? Because the Democrats, Biden administration is like forcing through this $1.9 trillion, and they want to do like all these sort of things. Like they want to do $3,000 per person per child, per household, per month. Like it's just like they're just like whipping out so much money. And this is what Stan Druckenmiller says. This is why he was buying commodities. This is why he's short the very, very short the US dollar. This is why he has Bitcoin. Is he was saying like all this stimulus has to come from somewhere, and it's going to come from destroying the US dollar. Tesla, by the way, let's shout out to poor Peter Schiff, because of course he's having he's having a breakdown. Peter Schiff is having a hard time, but and he's basically defaming Tesla and Elon Musk. But he should take heart in the fact that Elon Musk, Tesla did say that they actually might buy some gold bullion or gold ETFs.
Oh, yeah, he did say that, but I doubt he will. I think he just threw a bone to the gold bugs out there. I think it's because he wanted to make an equivalency between the Bitcoin and the gold. So he said, we're going to maybe buy gold with our Bitcoin. That's why we're doing it, see? It's all about keeping the SEC sweet. I'm talking to Elon last week. I saw him at the conference in Aspen. He told me all about it. And I was amazed. I smashed by the Swan Bitcoin, even though I hate those guys at Swan. They're parading around in their Swan. They're so beautiful. They make fun of me because I've been plucked again. But, it doesn't matter because I've got lots of Bitcoin. That's what the deal is. Hey, you're a very attractive woman.
Oh my God.
Hey, baby.
Do you like Max's voice?
Hey, baby.
That's basically the one voice Max does. It's the same voice for Peter Schiff. It's the same voice of Plucky. It's the same voice for Christine Lagarde. It's the same voice for Janet Yellen.
I'm thinking I'd like to pluck you.
Max was like a magician back in the 70s and hung out with too many.
Max, don't talk to Max. Max is not going to talk to me.
Talk to the guys with the little puppet.
Ventriloquism. All right.
That's the dumbest thing
Plucky.
ever, right?
Go back to your room. There.
Right. Well, I think we're going to, unless you have some questions, okay? We have 2,500.
What? Yeah.
I want some more likes here, right? I want some
Of
more
course you
likes.
do.
I want some more likes. Do you want me to put my helmet on? Okay. As soon as I ever say goodbye.
Yeah.
Not only does Max start talking more, but so do the people on.
The sale begins at no. The sale begins at no.
That explains France. France drives me crazy. That's okay. So how many years we lived there? 6 or 7 years, and after 6 or 7 years of hearing no first, whatever you ask them, they say no first, right? They say no, c'est impossible.
Right.
You're like, from experience that they're always actually going to do it.
Yes.
But they want to fight. They want to argue. They want to debate.
They begin every conversation with no.
Oh my God. I am going to rip your face off.
Can you send this fax? No.
No.
C'est impossible, monsieur. C'est interdit. Désolé, mais complètement no. Absolument no. But actually, I need to get it before 5 o'clock to my bank. Okay, c'est vrai, c'est bon, pas problème. Right?
And you're like, why did I just have to talk to you for 15
that?
minutes about this?
Why do we go through that? Why?
Why? Anyway.
But it's different when you say the sale begins with no. It's not about French people.
No.
It's about, selling, which is the pastime of American. The thing is, right? Tom Brady, I was thinking about this.
Yeah.
He is an American hero. Imagine if Tom Brady was in Europe. It would be a completely different story because he would be, for example, he was texting his players every night saying, we're going to win, we're going to win. And for an American, you're like, wow, that's so positivity. But if it was Europe, there would be scandalous headlines that rogue American football player is harassing people at night with aggressive tweets. And so this has gone to the European Commission as a human rights violation, particularly in France, where the French people are saying they're disturbing me at night and I can't sleep. I get these tweets.
Well, I have to say, my experience being back here in the United States for these past 4 years is that the corporate Dem side of the aisle is becoming very they're very much like the Europeans, the bureaucratic Europeans, but with that unique American sort of evangelical authoritarianism on top of it. Because when I was watching this the pregame footage, right? Everybody, it was on your Twitter stream, and you saw fucking hot, right? Let's admit. The women in the room know, Tom Brady is walking in and he's hot, right? Walking in sexy. And I'm just thinking, wow, this dude looks freaking hot. And then I tune in to Twitter and all these New York Times people are like, he's not wearing a mask and he's setting a very bad example for the people. And I'm like, what the fuck? That didn't even enter my mind. Is that what you see when you look at that guy walking in there, with these sunglasses and hot looking body and all that stuff? No.
Yeah, no, these nipples were hard as rocks all over America. on the female side of the equation. There's
Except for
Tom
at the New
Brady.
York Times, the
Except the New
Washington
York
Post.
Times, they're like, they had limp nipples. All the
Like,
women working there couldn't get a nipple erection if they saw frickin' Tom Brady walk in at the Super Bowl looking with a, like Joe Namath on the GQ in 21st century. They would still have their limp nipples.
I mean, everybody agrees. Like, people think you must hate Tom Brady now that I just said that.
No, I mean, it's look. This is the fact. The guy he's got magnetism and he's got charisma and he's super talented and he's winning Super Bowls. So,
Mm.
he's a classic guy that men look up to, women want to fuck, right? So this is like, your James Bond character, your superheroes. He's one of those characters, I consider myself to be in the same mold. Women want to fuck me, and guys look up to me. What can I say? I'm like a Tom Brady meets James Bond, like a Bitcoin. I know the burden when you're as good looking as I am, and when you're as talented as rich as I am,
And charming.
and charming and humble. It's hard to live with all those gifts from God.
Well, okay, we'll start to wrap up because people are saying this is a macrodose. Like, freaking hit the like button. Like, once it hits 2,000, because we're at 1.6 thousand likes. Once it hits 2,000, we'll shut the fuck up. Okay, but until
Really?
then, I'm gonna say, the thing he is quite captivating. Not just like looks, but you just like
Yeah.
wonder, like he doesn't, like, when you think of somebody who's like now the most winning of sports stars ever, like, you think you see like, "Arr, arr," like but he's like, hey, I'm like Steve McQueen, or like,
Well, he
Brett.
reinvented football. And what I mean by that is that up until Tom Brady, it was never in the history of football can somebody walk into a mediocre team
Yeah.
and transform the entire team to the Super Bowl in one season. And because football is this, you got the offensive team, you got the defensive team. There's like many, many, many layers. It's not like, let's say, football in Europe, where
Diego
let's say
Maradona.
Diego Maradona, one guy who's on the field 40 minutes for the whole match, who can score 2 goals and win the game and be the franchise. Tom Brady's only on during the offense. He's not even on. You're right. There's a whole defensive team there. He's got guys he's got to pass to. He's got blockers. It's like a very complicated setup. And yet, so it's not like European football. It's certainly not like golf or tennis, obviously. Those are single performances. So here's a guy who's in one position of many, and defense and offense, many coaches, who's able to not only elevate the team, but to levitate the team. He's like,
Mm.
the Vegas magician, David Copperfield, who can like levitate a building. Tom Brady's like a sorcerer. He can levitate this. He almost levitated that entire stadium. It was almost 6 feet off the ground.
Yeah, but he doesn't seem like he's not motivated by things that lesser men are, right? Like, all quarterbacks that are signed to the star quarterback of every team is going to say, "Give me the most money possible." He never does that. He's like, "Okay, I know you'll pay me 30 million a year, but I want 20 million a year, and use the other 10 million to hire people who can catch my ball." Like, because if I
Yeah.
don't have a receiver, I don't have goals.
Right,
I don't
because
have
most
touchdowns.
football players or quarterbacks are thinking in terms of I've got maybe 3 years in this league.
Yeah.
And so I've got to cash out, and that's going to be it. I think Brady somehow saw years ago that he could be at this level for a full 10 years. So he could say, you know what, I'm just going to focus on winning ball games. I'll get paid. He didn't get his big payday until this deal with the Buccaneers, right? Because he was up for free agency, but he was under contract for this entire time. And now under free agency. I mean, the move to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wasn't, nobody thought, I mean, nobody saw the logic in that at the time.
Yeah.
It did not seem
I
like,
did. I remember because Max was asking me where I thought Tom Brady would go. And I
yeah,
said it's going to be somewhere warm because his wife wants to be somewhere warm again because
right,
she's sick of New England. So it might be California because it's mostly warm there.
right.
And his other son is there. But, tropical, subtropical sort of Florida temperatures, like that's where somebody from Brazil wants to go,
Yeah,
eh?
I thought it was going to be Vegas because they just have a brand new franchise there, and like they bring in a huge star for 1 or 2 seasons. They're not going to win anything, but they'll bring in a lot of fans. That was
Yeah.
my thought. Like David Beckham going to the United States Soccer League, or Pele. He went to the United States Soccer League. I thought, okay, here's Tom Brady, pay him a lot of money, go to Vegas, build up the fan base, and then he's not going to win anything. But he's thinking like, I'm going to win a Super Bowl. So, and whatever the calculations he used in his football brain, he ended up at Tampa Bay. And only he understood that. Not a single pundit, not a single sports writer could give an adequate explanation as to why that made sense. And then here we are at Super Bowl. And of course, in retrospect, people are saying, oh, I get it. They had this great defensive
No,
coach. And
all the bookies had the Chiefs winning. So there was a bet against them. But, I think before we become a macrodose, because we've been doing
I
this for
thought we
an
were
hour
going
and
to
a half.
telethon. We took over for Jerry Lewis. We're going to go full 24 hours.
But because this was fun, of course, we've had a lot of just adrenaline driven days these past 2 weeks. Like the start of this year is like, huge Bitcoin bull market. We had Wall Street bets taking down hedge funds. And then we have Elon Musk climbing into Bitcoin. I'm sure we're going to have some other big announcements of corporate treasuries going into
Yeah, I
Bitcoin in the
think it's
next
going to be
quarter.
Oracle. Larry Ellison, I think,
Yeah.
he's the type of guy to do it. Tim Cook is not really the type that's going to jump into Bitcoin. Remember, their biggest shareholder is Warren
Yeah.
Buffett. Warren Buffett
Yeah.
is called Bitcoin rat poison. So he doesn't, he's got to think twice about it. So in that gap will come, I think, Larry Ellison over at Oracle. They've got huge
Plus,
cash, I
like
believe.
Tim Cook's like really loves the deep state, and Larry Ellison. I'll tell you a story before we go out. Larry Ellison, because I know somebody who's good friends with his son. So Larry Ellison has this thing where it's either A, B, C or 1, 2, 3. So like your various groups at his estate. This was at his California estate, which I think he's now sold and he's moved to Hawaii. But if you're in the A group, you're allowed to talk to him. You're allowed to approach him. And that's his wife. His son is not in the A group.
No, he's in the B group.
He's in the B group. And so they can look at him, but they can't talk to him first. They have to wait for Larry to talk to them. And then there's a whole bunch of people on the estate in the C group who aren't allowed to look at him, aren't allowed to approach him, aren't allowed to talk to him. So, if your own son is in the B group, like that just shows discipline. He's hard. Don't waste my time. Like I'm running this big company
Hmm.
and I've got Bitcoin to buy, and now, because probably his son talked to him or something, wasted his time, and now he wasn't before Elon, and now he's probably like, okay, I'm gonna have to move my son down to the C group.
That's right. And then you walk the plank. And you're in the D group for dead. Well, I guess that's it. Speaking of finality.
Well, thanks for joining us on this microdose. We microdosed Elon Musk. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back on Wednesday with our usual microdose. We always microdose on that Wednesday, and a full dose on Sunday with Orange Pill Podcast episode 28, and that will be with Nomi Prinz. If you have any questions, join the Orange Pill Podcast Telegram group, which is t.me/Orange Pill, and go send your questions to Nomi Prinz. And, if you don't know who she is, just look her up now and read her stuff because it's amazing. And she's very relevant to this Bitcoin, hyper Bitcoinized world, because she does talk about, she has all the inside scoop on, central banks and also the Wall Street shenanigans that, they work together to destroy this monetary system that we have.
Sounds like a winner. See you then.